Hello, once again, welcome to the Security Update, which we often look at issues concerning security in the continent from west to east, and these are the stories making the headlines. Kenya pledges support for a stable and peaceful Somalia. Nigeria police to deploy over 400,000 officers to secure polling units. African Union pledges zero tolerance against military takeover as summit ends in Addis Ababa. Burkina Faso ends French military operations as relationship drops to all-time low. Welcome to the program. Somalia Armed Forces Court has sentenced Abdulaziz Hussein Nur, 63-year-old former military trainer, to 15 years behind the bars for sharing army details with Al-Shabaab group. He is the second government official to be discovered collaborating with Al-Shabaab in less than 3 weeks. A military court in Mogadishu sentenced a 60-year-old training instructor from the Charles Yan Military Academy to 15 years in prison after he was found guilty of passing information from the army to the Al-Shabaab. Security agencies stated that Abdulaziz Hussein Nur Mursal was falsely claiming the rank of lieutenant colonel, but the fact that he was a second lieutenant. The previous government had exposed him during the army's registration. Allegedly, he began cooperating with Al-Shabaab out of rage over the investigation. He is the second government official to be discovered collaborating with Al-Shabaab. 2 weeks ago, the same military court sentenced a former army officer to death for his role in facilitating terror attacks on behalf of Al-Shabaab. The federal government of Somalia said on several occasions they will hold accountable anyone who cooperates with Al-Shabaab at any level and will be prosecuted in accordance with the law. Somalia Army said they have killed at least 50 Al-Shabaab members who were hiding in some areas of Hiran region and wounded more others. The government did not disclose if there were casualties on their side. The federal government of Somalia confirmed its forces have carried out a planned operation targeted Al-Shabaab in Hiran region, killing 50 members of the group, including 5 ringleaders, and wounding more. According to a government statement, the operation was also enforced by international security partners. The statement also added that the military operation lasted for 12 hours and ended in a successful manner. This latest military operation against Al-Shabaab is part of the government's serious attacks targeting the group in order to eliminate them from the country, which was launched by President Hamse at the end of last year. The government forces also claimed on Thursday they killed 200 Al-Shabaab members after they conducted similar operations in Hiran region. Kenya has pledged to continue supporting a stable and peaceful Somalia for the benefit of its people and the East Africa region. This is after a meeting in Addis Ababa between Kenya's President William Ruto and his Somalia counterpart Hassan Sheikh.
Kenya's President William Ruto on Sunday met with the President of the Federal Republic of Somalia, Hassan Mahmoud. The two leaders met on the sidelines of the African Union Summit in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Speaking after the meeting, President William Ruto said Kenya will continue to support a stable and peaceful Somalia for the benefit of its people and the East Africa region. President Ruto noted that a peaceful Somalia will provide a conducive atmosphere for increased trade between the two nations. Kenya has been a key ally in Somalia's peace and security matters for over a decade, especially in the fight against the Al-Shabaab. Besides bilateral engagements, Kenya is a major troop contributor to the African Union mission in Somalia.
Military operations between France and its former colony Burkina Faso have officially come to an end. The latest development marks the lowest point in the relationship between Paris and Ouagadougou.
After a flag-lowering ceremony at the camp of the French Special Forces a day earlier, France and Burkina Faso declared on Sunday that French military operations in the West African country have come to an end. In January, Burkina Faso terminated a military agreement that had allowed French troops to fight insurgents in the country, citing a desire to defend itself. Burkina Faso authorities had earlier gave France 1 month to withdraw its troops from the country. In a statement, the General Staff of the Burkinabe Armed Forces said it had participated with the leadership of France Sabre Special Forces in a solemn flag-lowering ceremony marking the official end of the task force's operations in Burkinabe soil. The departure of the French forces ushers in a new phase of Burkina Faso's conflict with extremist groups affiliated with Al-Qaeda and Islamic State, which have seized large expanses of land and uprooted millions of people in the wider Sahel region. Relations between France and Burkina Faso are at their lowest point. Protests by opponents of the French military presence increased sharply last year as they accused France of not doing enough to curb the insurgency. France has about 400 special forces soldiers stationed in Burkina Faso, which is battling extremist insurgency in the West African country. The special forces could be relocated to Niger Republic, where a sizable contingent of France and European forces are currently stationed, according to French diplomatic and defense sources. Kamel Sadiq, CBA TV.
The African Union Summit came to an end in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, with the Continental Party pledging its zero tolerance for military coup. The AU says Burkina Faso, Guinea, Mali and Sudan, all of which are ruled by military leaders as a result of coups, will remain suspended. But we will be back after the short break.
Making documentaries is one of the most creative craft and challenging endeavors you can be involved in. It is an effective strategy to inform, persuade, educate, defend the perspective and shed light on various issues, policies and activities. At CBA TV, documentary production is our forte. We capture every TikTok detail of events in highest resolution to tell the story you care about, from politics to human hunger, research-based content, educative and informative. We also help you project your story in a dynamic perspective that attracts the world views of the target audience, as there is no better or more powerful way to place the organization's values and achievements than to make an excellent documentary film. No doubt, our strength lies in these ventures, and we pride in many award-winning documentaries which have been earning accolades across Africa and beyond. Let's tell your story.
Welcome back again. The African Union Summit came to an end in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, with the Continental Party pledging its zero tolerance for military coup. The AU says Burkina Faso, Guinea, Mali and Sudan, all of which are ruled by military leaders as a result of coups, will remain suspended.
African leaders under the umbrella of the African Union have again re-emphasized their zero tolerance for military coup and other undemocratic change of government across the continent. The African Union announced on the final day of its summit in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, that it would continue to suspend Burkina Faso, Guinea, Mali and Sudan, all of which are ruled by military leaders as a result of coups. The AU said it was prepared to assist those nations in re-establishing constitutional order and democracy, according to the Commissioner for Political Affairs, Bankole Adeoye. The summit leaders also decided to move forward with plans for a free trade agreement that would cover almost all of Africa. Top of the agenda at the summit include armed conflict, a worsening food crisis and revitalization of the African economy through trade. The African Continental Free Trade Agreement, AFCFTA, which unites 54 of the 55 African nations, is adjudged as the largest in the world in terms of population. Kamel Sadiq, CBA TV.
Barely a few days to the presidential and parliamentary elections, the Nigerian police say more than 400,000 officers will be deployed to guard polling stations across 36 states, including the capital, Abuja. Nigeria will elect a new president on February 25th as President Muhammadu Buhari completes his 2 terms of 8 years as stipulated by the Constitution.
As Nigeria prepares for the presidential election in about 7 days, the police say more than 400,000 security personnel will be deployed amid fears that violent extremist or secessionist groups could try to disrupt the votes. Usman Alikali Baba, Nigeria's Inspector General Police, disclosed this in Nigeria's capital, Abuja. The Inspector General Police noted in his news briefing that at least 2 security operatives will guard each of the more than 17,000 polling stations across the country's 36 states, including the capital, Abuja. The police chief lamented the persistent cash and fuel shortages in many Nigerian states. Violent protests and bank attacks have already occurred, and the situation could mean more work for already overworked security forces. He, however, said the Nigerian police will be on hand in case of violent protests that may spring up in the country. The southeast region is home to a separatist movement blamed for the recent violence, and it has recorded the highest number of attacks on security posts, the Electoral Commission's facilities, and its officers. This has raised fears that voters will be afraid to cast the ballot on election day. Kamil Sadiq, CBA TV, Nigeria.
Somalia military court has executed 2 police officers who killed 2 civilians in the districts of Hamarweyne and Balaa town by firing squad. The police officers killed the civilians in separate places and for different purposes.
A military court in Somalia has executed 2 police officers early Saturday morning who killed 2 civilians in the districts of Hamarweyne and Balaa town by firing squad. Mumin Hussein Abdullahi, deputy prosecutor of the Armed Forces of Somalia, told the reporters. Qasim Duala Abdullahi was executed for the murder of Abu Bakr Muhammad Sheikh Noorani Abrimo, who was a small business owner in Hamarweyne district, and Hassan Chula Shakir, who killed Alitali, a tuk-tuk driver in Balaa district. The military court executed after the court found them guilty of killing civilians. The family of the deceased Abu Bakr Muhammad Sheikh Noorani Abrimo, who were present for the execution, show gratitude to the government for giving justice to their loved ones.
$1.3 billion according to the United Nations office in Nigeria, is needed to aid for about 6 million people affected by violent insurgencies in the West African country. 80% of those in need in northeastern Nigeria are women and children.
The United Nations office in Nigeria says at least 6 million people affected by the extremist insurgency in northeastern Nigeria need $1.3 billion in aid this year. The 2023 United Nations Humanitarian Response Plan noted the need for critical life-saving assistance as a result of more than 12 years of extremist violence that has killed an estimated 35,000 people and displaced at least 2 million in the region. The UN Humanitarian Coordinator for Nigeria said the large-scale humanitarian and protection crisis shows no sign of ending. So far, over 80% of those in need in northeastern Nigeria are women and children, according to the United Nations. It added that if donors and authorities do not act quickly, at least 4,000 people could die, starve, or face acute malnutrition in Bama, Maiduguri, northern Nigeria. The humanitarian crisis in Nigeria could further affect many others in a country which has an unemployment rate of 33% and 63% of the people are in poverty. Nigeria has been battling Boko Haram insurgency largely in the northeastern part of the country since 2009. The fight has since spread over the years to the neighboring West African countries of Cameroon, Niger, and Chad Republic. Kamil Sadiq, CBA TV, Nigeria.
And with that, the story of the $1.3 billion according to the United Nations office in Nigeria, is needed in aid for about 6 million people affected by violent insurgency in the West African country. We'll wrap up our program for this time. Thank you very much for being with us. This is me, Hamse Daabjeerin.